welcome to the newest edition of AmiSights. I'm Ami Kassar, your host, along with my co-host, Lynn Ozer, aka SBA Queen. Rarely do I have a banker on the show because, frankly, I don't like most bankers, but today I have one who I like. Dave Becker is my friend. He's the founder and CEO of First Internet Bank. He's a banker with an imagination and creativity. It's a rare find. David, thanks for being on the show.
You're welcome, Ami. Thank you. Lynn, nice to meet you.
It's so nice to meet you.
David, why don't you just start by telling us your story?
Well, that could take us 3 hours to get through the whole thing, but I'll give you a abridged version of it here. As I told Lynn a couple minutes ago, I'm kind of an accidental banker. I was in the software industry for about 20 years, providing software tools to credit unions and banks across the United States. In 1996, I came up with the idea of doing an electronic bank with no brick and mortar and serving a nationwide customer base. Tried to sell the idea to a couple banks here in Indiana and nobody would buy in. So as we're standing at the elevator, my salesman says, "What are we going to do now?" I said, "I'm going to go start a bank." He said, "You don't know anything about banking." I said, "I know what I don't like about banking as a small business owner." And I said, "I know there's a lot of people like me across the country. If I can solve my problems, I'll solve their problems. We'll have a home run hit." So that was 1996. Took me 3 years to get it chartered. I won't go through that. That's a story in itself of trying to go through all the regulatory hoops. I would classify First Internet Bank as kind of the first fintech company. We were software-driven, technology-driven, not really traditional banking background in place. So we got the charter in February 1999. We're now 25, just celebrated our 25th anniversary. We're closing in on 6 billion assets. About 100,000 customers coast to coast. We had a buy-in in all 50 states within 90 days of opening the virtual doors. And I'm not quite sure why, but Connecticut was the last state for us to get a customer in. We had the Dakotas, Hawaii, Alaska before Connecticut came over. But
It's interesting.
it's been a fun run.
Well, David, tell us about your entrepreneurial journey when you, I don't know, I'm assuming with all adding up the years, it was right after you got out of school that you started a software company or you worked for a software company and then you went into the credit union business. Go
Yeah,
back to the beginning and tell us how that all transpired.
Yeah, technically, I got out of college in 1975. I thought I was going to go to law school, decided I didn't want to do that. So I wound up at General Electric Credit Corporation in the days of Jack Welch. I kind of spent about 3.5 years there, view that as my working MBA. Jack obviously ran a great organization when he's part of GE and GECC in particular. I have the distinction of being the only person that asked Jack Welch a question in a public forum and did not get fired after they asked the question. So kind of a little bit of a maverick in the outside from the get-go. So my 3.5 years there, I view as my working MBA. Kind of hit the political wall within GE. I was in a position where average seniority was 18 years. They were just telling me, just sit still. I couldn't do that. So I went to work for the Indiana Credit Union Association as a consultant. 1979 deregulation came along. Credit unions had all kinds of powers, but they had no tools. I was complaining about the services that we had. I was informed by my boss they paid part of my job in salary based on being part of the Services Corps. If I couldn't say nice things, I needed to go find an alternative or say nice things. So found an alternative, wrote a business plan, presented to the leagues and Services Corp board of directors. They spent 45 minutes arguing not whether it was a good idea or not, what committee should do it. So in true Hoosier fashion, I stood up, whistled, did a timeout, said, "Guys, I'll solve it. I'm going to quit and go start the company myself, and hopefully you'll all be customers." So walked out of the boardroom and April 8th, 1981, I launched Remember Data Services, which was kind of a core online processing engine back in the days when most credit unions were doing batch. Built that into a nationwide product, added Wi-Fi, which was virtual financial services. We competed with Digital Insight as the first kind of online connectivity for banks and credit unions. And then had another company called OneBridge, which was real-time ATM, credit card, debit card processing. So with those three tools, when I put it together and launched First Internet Bank in 1999, and Sunday afternoon, I wanted to go to a Colts game and I had no money. I could pull out my flip phone and make a transfer from my credit card into my checking account, pull the money out of the ATM as I walked into the arena. Nobody else in the country could do that on a Sunday afternoon at any bank or credit union anywhere. So that was the genesis of going from kind of learning financial services. And in fact, the brochure on my first corporate brochure for Remember Data was, what if somebody who new credit union started a computer company? I can't write a line of code, never have been able to. My daughter, if I get a new cell phone, I give it to her to set it up for me. It's easier than me trying to work my way through it. So it's been a lot of fun.
I was just gonna ask that. Like, you obviously knew exactly what you wanted the software to do. And I was going to say, who actually did it for you? Because that's
I hired some great people. I think my success over the last 50 years has been really hiring great people that go do great things. I have the vision and the ideas and dream up some of the crazy stuff. And my team's always been able to deliver. So it's been a lot of fun. In fact, the gentleman who actually came in to run the computer services company for me was a 30-year veteran at NCR. And we're sitting at a meeting one day and he slams his fist on the table. He goes, "Man, I'll be damned. I had to go to work for a kid before I actually got to do what I wanted to do and I knew I could do all these years." He said, I don't know how I ran into you, but I'm so thankful I did. He said, I had a blast. And he was with me for 20 plus years. So
it's just
David, if you ever really need a good coder for your team, good technology, just hire Lynn. She's amazing.
It's great that we never cross paths in this manner. I have a question for you about all of you starting all of this in the financial services, having worked for a bank for as many years as I did. Every time there was something that was coming through, in the fintech world, it was all the fear and the compliance issues and the privacy. Did you have all those issues when you started, or were those problems not even around then?
Back in 1999, the biggest single issue we had to overcome was CRA compliance, because that law was based on the bank and the footprint of where your branches were.
Right.
So that was the one I didn't have an answer to. And the regulators finally came back and said, well, write your own plan and base it on your back door, like you would if you were a traditional bank. Just write a plan for us. We'll approve it or deny it. They approved it. And so we were one of the first banks in the country to literally write our own CRA plan. We've been doing that for 25 years now. I think there's about 30 to 40 banks kind of like us that don't have traditional footprints of bricks and mortar and branches. So we have to kind of design something that works for us. So we take central Indiana, kind of Marion County and all the donut counties around us. That's where we comply with CRA in our own back door.
Got it.
David, let's talk about how the hell you keep banking innovative.
I think our key to success there is we don't hire a lot of bankers. Because we just had that discussion the other day, and I'm actually working on a program here in the state of Indiana to get kids while they're still in high school to be apprentices at the bank, to teach them our own ways. And I personally think we can bring somebody into banking that doesn't know anything about it in 2 years, make them a phenomenally productive employee and a participant of the organization. A lot of times bankers get very set in their ways, particularly people that have a long term at a given institution. If they're not moving bank to bank, they just get into a routine, and it's harder to break that routine.
Oh my God.
The play here, I'm 25 years old, 330 something employees, but I'd still say we're very innovative, entrepreneurial in spirit. The logo in our boardroom is the only constant in our organization is change, which you don't hear from bankers historically. I've never said in a meeting where somebody made the statement, we do it that way because that's the way we've always done it. and we're constantly innovating. We actually have a employee program called Eureka, where the employees dream up new ideas, services, and programs, make a pitch to senior management. And I think the ones we just did here a month or so ago, 5 out of the 6 suggestions got approved. So they get rewarded, they get prizes and stuff for helping us out. And we bring in summer interns. Last summer, we had 18 interns. The first day they're on the job for the summer, we tell them, hey, at the end of this summer period of the 90-day play, you're going to make a presentation to senior management on something you've seen while you're here that you would do differently or you think we could use and play. Last year was the first time we put them in teams of 2, so we had 9 presentations. We adopted 7 out of 9 of their ideas. So we bring in fresh eyes, fresh talent, anything we can to kind of juice us and push us along.
It's amazing. It's pretty interesting to see, and I don't know if I've looked at the data recently, but there are very few new banks that start in this country.
Oh yeah, de novo institutions in the late 1990s, early 2000, there were probably 50 to 60, and then we went for a period of almost 10 years with no institutions. And now I'd say in the last decade, maybe 6 or 7 new institutions across the country. It's nominal. Very, very, very few.
And what's amazing to me is, and you guys are an anomaly, we work, as you know, with a lot of banks. The bigger they get, the more difficult and annoying they get.
Well, as I said, one of the first statements I made to my salesman was, I understand what I don't like about my teams, and a lot of that is bureaucracy and play. I think one of the keys to our success in the growth that we've had, we're growing at about $1 billion a year. I'm the kid from Monrovia, Indiana. My high school graduating class of 72 kids, 4 of us went to college, 2 of us got out. So I think my true success over the years has been getting tremendous folks to come to work for me. I've sold most of my software companies at this point, but I've got, out of the 300 employees, 30 to 40 are people that work for me and other companies. The regulators are always just at all, you sold the company out from under them and they still want to work for you? I said, yeah, I'm kind of a nice guy at heart. So and, they enjoy what we do and how we do it. And
yeah,
we know how we all work together. It's been a lot of fun over the years.
It's so refreshing. The bank, the last bank that I worked for, the average tenure of the people there was 25 years. And, that just reeks of lack of innovation.
Yeah.
And, they would get a good idea and then they'd get in their own way. Somebody would say it and they'd adopt it, but then, by the time they went through the consensus of everyone that's been there for 25 years, they were back to doing it. Well, we always did it this way, and it's very,
and that's the play. If we hire traditional long-term bankers, they either within 30 days, they think they're died and gone to heaven and they're having the time of their life, or they're scared to death and they run out of here screaming and yelling. So it's
hey, Ami, that sounds familiar. Ami always says when people come to work with Ami at multifunding, they either last 6 months or they never leave.
Yeah, kind of the same game here. Same game here for sure.
Yeah.
David, there are a lot of listeners of this show are just entrepreneurs. They don't give a damn about banking, but they care about innovation. And they should care about banking, but it's not. I mean, they're not in our industry. And it's super interesting, I think, to think about how you keep a company innovating and how you, as a leader, keep that mindset of always pushing forward and being willing and open to trying new things while retaining your core values, but keeping that innovation culture alive. I mean, something I'm thinking about a lot. We just crossed 15 years. This year's 15 years in multifunding, and we're one of the best in the country at SBA lending, but that's also 95% of what we're doing, trying to figure out how to innovate. Okay. How do you keep that? Do you have any advice for the entrepreneurs who listen to the show the interns are great, that's so great, but how is in your mindset you keep that innovation alive?
Yeah, it's interesting. Over the years, I've created 500 companies, which is really kind of all about growth, and it's just your sales target. What most people don't understand, to have a successful company, sales are great, and you need to focus on that. You need clients in play, but 95% of the Inc. 500 companies are not around after their 5th anniversary. Really good ones are sucked up by somebody else, or the rest of them fail because they've outstripped resources, they've outstripped the talent of the organization in place. So to be a good entrepreneur, you have to have, I call it, balance in your work environment. My number one play and my number one asset, no matter what the company's been, no matter what I'm doing, I believe, is the people of the organization. So my philosophy is, you find a good person, hire them. Even if you don't have a spot, you will find a spot for that person and they will do great things for you. But when you're hiring because you need a body, you get a warm body. You don't really get a person that's going to help you grow and move on. Everybody asks me, you're always thinking outside the box. And my response is, I never knew there was a box. I get an idea, the whole idea and concept of the bank. When we built it out to begin with, I got all my neighbors, set them down on my kitchen table, said, okay, if you could bank here on your laptop, what do you want to do? And I just started describing all the things that we discussed now. And that's how we built the first website for First Internet Bank. So I think to stay fresh and to keep the ideas moving, one, hire outside your industry, outside of your comfort zone, hire great people, and continually go to seminars, programs, lectures. You got books on tape and stuff today we didn't have back in the day. But every time I would leave, I'd come back with 30 new ideas, drove my staff nuts. So they didn't want me going to conferences because I came back with all kinds of crazy stuff I wanted them to deliver. So just you as the entrepreneur have to stay refreshed. I've got a son who started a bicycle shop down in Bloomington, Indiana, which is a bicycling mecca because of their little 500 bike race that they've made movies about. And I'm saying, son, you got to take a break. You got to get out of there. I said, I had a poster on my college fraternity room wall that said, it's hard to remember your objectives to drain the swamp when you're up to your ass in alligators. And I said, if you don't get out, get away from it for a while, it's just going to consume you. You have to get refreshed. You'll come back. You'll feel better. You'll be more effective in your employees. And I think it really, really does just go back, quite honestly, to talent. And no matter what vertical we're going into, with SBA, I spent 7 years trying to get the right team that I knew I liked them. I liked the way they worked, and we had the ability to take them to the next level. When I got into the RV horse trailers, I bought some loans from CIT and learned the business by managing this portfolio that we bought. Single tenant leasing, we've done $2 billion nationwide on single tenant leases. That too, I bought a portfolio from a local insurance company, got to know those customers, how it worked, and played, and then brought in the team to build it. And I think entrepreneurs on my plate, I've finally come to a deal with my wife after 30 years that when I sell a company, I won't start 2 more. But I keep like
You might have violated one of those rules recently, but we won't talk about that.
Yeah. So with the SBA and single tenant leasing and stuff, I still get to refresh and try new things within the shell of the bank. And being an entrepreneur myself, as I say, I got into banking because I didn't feel they were taking care of me, particularly in a software as a service business back when they weren't calling it SaaS, but it was all about cash flow, and bankers didn't understand cash flow. You had to have a hard asset, you had to have 4 legs and a tail, or you had to be manufacturing widgets. The idea that you have intellectual capital made no sense to me. One of the plays that my traditional bankers fought me for months on end here in the office, our small business do more checking account. There's no service fees. There's no minimum balance requirements. If you want to make interest, 50 basis point interest on a checking account, you have to maintain an average balance of $4,000. So we've got some of the best tools in the country for small business owners. And it's kind of my way of giving back and trying to help folks like me that are trying to get things off the ground. And we do a lot of business acquisition financing through the SBA traditional, which is just a phenomenal tool. But a lot of the folks that buy the business, unless they're from inside the business, an outsider coming in thinks, oh, I've got 30 years history and I can go run a small business, no problem. It's an eye opener and a half. Within 90 days, they're like, oh my God, what did I get myself into? Things are blowing up, and they need folks like you guys to back them up, help them out, and consult. And they need a banker. And one thing I did learn very early on, when I started my first company, there's 3 people that you need dearly. You need to talk to them all the time, not just when things go bad. You need a great attorney, like them or not. There are going to be needs for an attorney. And if you don't have a good one, and they don't know what you're doing, it's hard to get them up to speed when you're in trouble or have a problem. You need a great accountant. It's not all about sales. You have to understand cash flow. You have to understand inventory, et cetera, in the business. And you need good insurance coverage and background on that side. So if you got those 3 components together, you got a good solid foundation to start with. And even if you're a sole proprietor, you've got 3 allies in the outside world that have seen a lot of things, particularly if you're a startup business that you might not have encountered. You think you're the Lone Ranger and the only person that's ever seen this. But if you got good professionals backing you up, it makes your life a hell of a lot easier.
Yeah. David, it's beginning of 2025 here. You're a quarter century in on First Internet Bank. What in your mind does the next 25 years look like? Or maybe it's hard to think that far ahead, but the next couple of years.
Yeah, I think we have a new administration coming in, which should, if you listen to the hype that's coming out of them, relieve some of the regulatory nuisance that's going on in the world. It should be a pro-business atmosphere for at least the next 3 to 4 years. Lower taxes, et cetera. I don't know that we're going to get lower interest rates. Some of the things that they're talking about in tariffs, et cetera, could boost inflation again and create some problems. But I think the biggest thing that is going to change our world in the next 3 to 5 years is artificial intelligence. I go back to 1999 and the power, if you think back 25 years ago, what the internet has done for us. Back in that day, if you wanted a movie, you went to Blockbuster and rented a video. Today, you stream whatever you want on your TV, generally at no cost, a monthly access fee. A lot of things that we couldn't do 25 years ago that the internet enabled us. You can buy anything, anytime, anywhere in the world. Get to your money anytime, any place in the world. But it's just an access device. You take artificial intelligence, and it can actually do things for you. Programmed properly, with the right foundation and basis, things will actually happen. I made the story probably about 3 years ago. I said, within the next 5 years, when you go to work, you're going to get in your car. It's going to drive you to work. Along the way, if you want a Starbucks, you'll just tell the car, hey, hit Starbucks, get my usual order. Car will place the order. It'll be paid for. You'll go through the drive up. They'll hand it to you through the window. You go on to work. It'll drop you at the front door, and then it'll go pick up your dry cleaning. It'll go pick up your groceries. It'll run all your errands during the day and come back at 5 o'clock and pick you up. Well, the reality of that, that's here today. That stuff is coming. The auto-driven car, and I was just at a program, a seminar in New York, first part of December. They're talking Apple has decided they don't want to get into banking because of all the regulatory headaches that come along with that and all the craziness. But they're going to release their wallet. So you can embed an Apple Wallet in your product and embed it in the car. So all that financial transaction activity, they're going to give up the golden grail and access to the wallet and the services side of Apple. So, that could be here in 12, 18, 24 months. And I think that's what we will see. I think the power of AI will be more revolutionary than the internet was 25 years ago. And a lot of people are scared to death. Some of my employees worried, oh my God, I'm going to lose my job to the computer. No, you're not going to lose a job. The computer will take over mundane tasks. We've got one customer that we work with. We process $1 billion in ACH payments on a monthly basis for them. A human could not go through that database, look for abnormalities and issues that the regulators are worried about with AML and money laundering, et cetera. The AI tool can do it in about 3.5 minutes. Look at 100,000 transactions and tell you the problem. You as the human will get to decipher that data take out the results and get them resolved in problems. So you'll get to actually do tasks that the machine can't do, and it'll take care of the mundane stuff. So mundane stuff, and the productivity should go up. It allows people to really use their minds and do creative good work and not just task-oriented transactions. So I think we're the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to see changes we never dreamed of. Your house will maintain itself. Your car will maintain itself. There's just a lot of cool things coming that will give you a lot of time and leisure.
How's the banking industry going to handle all that?
Yeah. How's the security? How is the security going to keep up with it? Like cybersecurity is such a big thing, and how will it even? It hasn't. I don't think it's caught up to what it needs to secure now, let alone with all these new innovations. That's what scares me.
Well, as you probably heard here in the last 24 to 48 hours, they finally made a statement that the Federal Reserve of the U.S. Treasury has owned up to the fact that the Chinese hackers broke into the U.S. Treasury. Now, they supposedly got rudimentary emails and data that was irrelevant. They didn't get anything of consequence, but you're spot on. Security is huge. It's an ongoing fight. For years, folks have asked me, you never talk about security. And I said, don't go bragging. That's like waving a red flag in front of a bull. And if I start bragging about our security somewhere in the world, a 13-year-old kid's going to bring me to my knees. And so that is by far the toughest thing. And with quantum computing out here now, they can break about any algorithm that you have on security codes and stuff. The 256K algorithms that were invincible 10 years ago, quantum computing can break them in about 10 seconds. So that's an issue, a perpetual issue that we fight on a daily basis. And the institutions that are not keeping up on the security side of things, and a lot of times it's not on their side, but it's a third-party vendor that they're working with that they give access. All of a sudden it gets into the wrong hands, or JP Morgan years ago, where they were broken into because gentleman let his kid play a software game on his computer, and his home computer, and which had his login credentials. The kid let a hacker into the home base. Next thing you know, he was in JP Morgan mainframe. So it's that's a crisis. But the benefits on the other side, one of the issues in the AI world that we limited in access to our employees. If you go to the large language models and really throw stuff out there to do supercomputing and all kinds of crazy stuff, that's in the internet, and you can't pull it back. As soon as you put that data out there, whatever it's doing for you, that database is out there. Somebody will find it. And a lot of institutions that jumped on AI when it first came out, all of a sudden their whole customer database is hanging out in the web somewhere. And they hadn't thought about that. So part of the AI for financial institutions is how to lock your data and protect the privacy of your customers and not let the outside world get into it, yet still use the tool for your data. So the moving target. I was quoted in an article here a couple of weeks ago about the kind of the wild west again. There's all kinds of neat things to do, and there's great tools to play with, but you've got to be phenomenally cautious. You can blow your foot off and not know you're doing it. So
and that was always the biggest fear for banks getting into anything with software and computers, because they're just too afraid. So
and that quite honestly, in the first couple of banks I was trying to sell the idea to, that's what it came down to. The bottom line, you can't do that in a real-time environment. It just can't be done. And two, it's not safe and it's not secure. And I made the statement to him. I said, if I had $200 in my account, you have 24 branches, you have 30 ATMs. I could go to each of those branches. I could go to each of those ATMs in the same business day and get $200 from each, because you would put the balances together, batch it up at the end of the day, and have new balances for the next day. I said, I could go hit you for $3,000 and $200 in a matter of 6 hours. And CEO turns to his IT guys. He goes, he said, it is, and we don't publicize it. Believe me. You can do
I heard of something new. I don't know if, David, you've seen this, or Lynn, but there are services out there that are total scam. They'll charge an entrepreneur like $5 or $7 grand, and when they're starting up, and they will apply for like 15 credit cards for them simultaneously. So the system doesn't know that, that you've got that credit. Now, Len, on the automatically scored SBA loans under 150 or whatever,
Mhm.
there's a new service doing the same damn thing.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of folks try to beat the system, and still today, I mean, we get applications for folks' dogs, whatever, they're trying to get credit cards open and accounts. They're still playing the game. They assume, oh, you guys are all online, you'll never figure it out. Back in the day when we first started, we were getting $50 postal money orders from the same address. We get 10 of them in a day. The 102 New York Street, apartment A, apartment B, C, they go through the alphabet, assuming nobody's going to pay any attention. Well, we still had humans. We open the mail every day. We just stack all the post office money orders up in one stack and go down there and compare, and then hand it all off to the FBI to go after these guys for fraudulent activities. But yeah, everybody tries to scam the system, and you're spot on. I mean, still today, things like that of applying on the credit card world, they're getting better, but some folks report to all three credit bureaus, some report to one out of the three, or don't report at all. So particularly inquiries, and you can, in a given day, if you do multiple applications, there's a fair chance it could all go through the same business day. So yeah, it's a problem for sure.
The SBA space, what do you see coming up in that world in the next couple of years?
Well, one of the things that I'm not sure how the dust is going to settle on it, about a year or so ago, under current administration, they didn't feel enough loans were getting to the very small kind of micro businesses and stuff. So they allowed some of the fintech folks to come in and not make SBA loans under SBA standards, but based on what they were doing in their organization. And I think obviously the PPP programs, there's still reports coming out on a weekly basis of somebody else being sued for the fraud and the millions of dollars of scams that they ran in the PPP program. I think the SBA needs to stay as the SBA has been from its inception, a small business tool run by professionals, not run by third parties that don't understand the rules of the game and the standard operating procedures. Some of those can be cleaned up and tweaked. I think the computer systems in the SBA world are still as close to green screen as you can get. They're old software, and nobody's come in and really helped them modify it. And I think one of the successes, we still have to use the core engine of the SBA world to do the processing and the tracking of the loans and stuff. But our origination tools and things are all pieces that we built, kind of put together, that bolt on to the SBA system. So the customer has a much better experience. It's much faster and easier to get through. But I think the SBA world, it fills a tremendous void in the financial services industry. Small people starting up, or folks that are just have the idea, or they're buying the company, or they're taking over a parent's organization or an in-laws company. They need credit source and activity, and somebody that will work with them and help them through the humps. They're going to hit a wall. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And in a traditional banking environment, if they hit a wall, the first thing is, well, we're going to shut you down. We're going to, whatever security we got, if you got personal guarantees, have your house, we're going to go after. When you're in trouble, we're going to try and salvage everything we can to protect the bank. In the SBA world, you're given an opportunity to work yourself out of problems, and opportunities are much more forgiving. And if you make a mistake, now if you keep making the same mistake over and over again and hoping the results are going to be different, then they're going to shut you down as well. But I think the SBA is a great tool for startup companies or folks that are getting into business for the first time to get a credit vehicle. And I will tell you, if at all possible, if you're working and you're requesting funds to buy the business, get a cushion. No matter what you think it's going to take to get the company off the ground and cover all the expenses, you're not going to guess right. Get a cushion, be it 100,000, an extra 150, just to have a cushion, because you're going to underestimate some expense. You're going to run into some kind of problem. We were talking, we get a blizzard this weekend and your business shuts down for 3 days because you can't get into the office. You have no cash flow. How are you going to cover that up and keep the business afloat? So I think the SBA world is a great tool, and I just hope that the political environment doesn't blow it up and turn it into something that's not. It as clunky as it is at times, it still works, and it provides a great tool to small business owners. We need to preserve it for what it is, hopefully make it better, but don't screw it up by letting outsiders come in and blow up the system with a lot of fraud and a lot of issues. And the government just says, we're losing too much money, we have to shut this program down.
You know, I've been involved in that world for 47 years, and the strides that were made internally from a technological point of view are amazing. Now they can't do it nearly as fast as they did before, but when you talk about fraud, minuscule amount of fraud in the 7A program, minimal. When PPP came on and there was a ton of fraud, they clearly identified that the fraud was mostly attributed to the fintechs that were in the program and giving out the PPP loans. And then what did SBA do under the other administration? Is they changed the rules so that there could be more fintech and took away the ability of preferred lenders who did look for fraud, and they took that away. And
Yeah.
it just was, they created a solution for a problem that did not exist. And I'm talking strictly about fraud. And that's the sad part, because the agency and the lenders together had an incredibly good track record.
Yeah, and I think the institutions with the time frame involved would have been fine. They didn't need to bring the fintech players in. They wanted to get to scale. They wanted to get money out the door as quickly as possible. I agree with you. I think there was more fraud in PPP than the SBA's had in the history of the organization. And the craziness is that when you bring in the outsiders, all they're looking for is quick buck. And
that's right. And yeah,
in Miami, I saw a light play PPP, basically saying his new Mercedes was paid for by his PPP loan, and he's driving down the street. I mean, that's not the purpose of what this stuff is all about.
Did you take a picture of that too?
No, I didn't. I should have. And but I did immediately. I called Nicole and the team back here. I said, guys, you're not going to believe what I just saw. On a license plate, a new Mercedes convertible, PPP. And I had a friend who had another friend in Miami that said he bought a jet based on the money he made off a PPP processing loan. So it was, the intent was good, but execution was rotten. And that's what I hope they don't do to SBA going forward here, is let it be what it is and let the folks take care of it.
Yeah, moving to self-certification, which is what they did in PPP, and putting that onto their flagship 7A loan program was not the best decision.
No.
We'll see.
One of the things I'll just share with you guys, and then soon we're going to have to wrap. It's been a fantastic show. One of the things, and I know, David, we talked about this a little bit a couple weeks ago in Indiana when I was visiting, but with all this virtual SBA lending we're doing, I think there's more we can be doing. Yes, the entrepreneur should have the banker and should have the accountant and should have the attorney, but they also need support around them and scaffolding around them and resources around them. And it's lonely as hell. And I think there are a lot of opportunities to, great, Mr. Entrepreneur, we just gave you your $1 million to go buy that. Right now, what we do is, here's your $1 million, here's your $2 million, you bought the business, congratulations, good luck. Call us if you need us. Make sure you make your payments. And we move on to the next transaction. We all do it.
Right.
There's so much more I think we can be doing to be putting scaffolding and support and resources around those entrepreneurs, that if they take it, And if they leverage it and if they use it, will make them far less likely to get into trouble one day.
Yeah, I agree with you, Ami, 100%. And
I don't know how to do that yet, but I'm thinking about it.
yeah, tossed in a couple ideas, and we have a phenomenal company here in Indianapolis called Eli Lilly, and a few years back they made some very big compensation packages and offers to people to take early retirement before the new wave of drugs and stuff had come out. The business is booming again. And one of the issues I had, and then said I would never invest in a Lilly executive because they really don't understand how to run a business. They had 20 lieutenants. They were super high up in the food chain in the pecking order, but they'd never made a payroll. They never had a responsibility in that service. And I agree with you. And that's where we try to coach and talk to people. If we have somebody wanting to buy a business, it's like tomorrow I want to wake up and I want to be a doctor. Can't do that. I don't have the skills and the talent to do that. So we will actually counsel people trying to buy a company that they have no basis in. Well, I've got good management skills. Well, if you don't understand the industry, that doesn't matter. And we try to head people off. We get yelled at times. My God, I can't believe you want to prove this. I got X net worth and blah, 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 blah. Well, but you don't know anything about what you're stepping into. And the other services and programs, we try to build tools into our software and our banking products. We got cash flow analytics that'll tell you, based on the last 90 days history, here's what your next 90 days are going to look like, and here's where you're going to run out of cash. If you don't have sales, you don't have opportunities. We will sweep funds automatically. So instead of getting nothing in a checking account, it'll set in a money market where you can make 350 basis points plus on the money. And it'll happen in the background while you're worried about the business. Things will transact. So we try to add tools and services. We try to educate. There's a lot of associations. You belong to a number of them across the country. And I try to convince folks in one of the organizations that I thoroughly loved back in the day. I haven't been involved with them in years. It was in the Inc. 500 program. Inc. magazine did training sessions all over the country all the time. And you got phenomenal skills. And if nothing else, just walking the halls and interacting with people in the same boat that you are and realizing, my God, I'm not alone. And there are there's local business organizations that do that. I think every state in the country has a SCORE program, the Society of Retired Executives, business people that give you free time and consulting services. And I think one of the biggest issues with a lot of business owners, particularly newbies at it, they just keep fighting the fire and they never raise a hand and ask for help. Like you say, we as the bank, we move on to the next transaction and the next deal. We have tools that we use, and we're actually putting in a call center service to help folks and point them in the right direction on some of the activities and stuff. And we're running some of these things in the background, and we see things going the wrong way. We'll kind of give them a holler, a heads up where we can. But yeah, it's again, back to my initial story about the alligators in the swamp. There's time you just have to step back and think about what's out here and raise your hand for help. There's a ton of people willing to do that, but those folks just, I don't know whether it's out of personal pride or what it is, or they're just fighting the fires and they just burn themselves out and get to the point they give up and walk away, which is not a win for anybody. So
you get paralyzed by fear. So
you do, without question, without question.
David, my friend, it's been a real treat. Thank you so much. And I'm glad you and Lynn, SBA Queen, got a chance to connect. We have shirts with our nicknames on them here and our number of employees, and her nickname is CTO, but we're joking.
I am not the Chief Technology Officer.
At least she knows what that stands for.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
had to tell me, but I know now.
Or you can say Chief Talent Officer and you can go the other way. Hiring it.
Okay.
It's been my pleasure, guys. I enjoyed it immensely.
Yeah, we loved having you. Thanks for everything.
You're welcome. You're welcome.